who enjoy celebrating it. Happy Ostara, blessed Ostara to those who celebrate. And whatever way you're feeling on this lovely day of emphasized Dragon's Gate, definitely an Emperor's Day being 4/4. And it's funny because as I was thinking to do this divine nugget, I was amused by the cacophony of sounds going on. The neighbor's dog barking. There's some neighbor in the distance who has a rooster, and there's kids playing somewhere nearby, probably at the church that's down the street. And then, of course, we've got the springtime birds, mostly robins and townies and blue jays and such things, but everybody's chattering, chatty, chatty, chatty. And, anyways, I'm not going to make this a very long nugget. I just want to talk about something briefly, just to put it in your mind so you can chew on it. Be like a toddler with it, like you've got a Lego or a block, and it's like you're going to put it in your mouth for a while. Is it edible? Not really. Well, no, it's not edible. Does it taste good? Not really. It's kind of weird on the tongue and on the gums, but it's not really for the mouth. So let's see what we could do with this. Do I want to put it on top of another Lego? You know what? That's actually the perfect thing, because what I want to talk about is how life, happiness, love, work, all of it, like none of it has to look anything like anyone has ever told you that it has to look like or be like, or that you've assumed it must look like, or that the movies have told you that it must look like. And if you think about how a toddler does that stuff, it's pretty much everything. First, it goes in the mouth, right? Let's see how it goes. Sometimes it goes in the nose, other times it goes in the toilet, other times it goes in the sink or out the backyard. Like, think about that state when we're toddlers. There are no rules. And the only limits that are applied are by the adults around us, like, and even those, when we're that young, we have very little concept for time, and if it doesn't make us happy, we don't it doesn't stay. Like, that's why you got to go through multiple times and remind them of the limitations, like they must wear shoes when they're going to go walking in a gravel park, or hold mom or dad's hand before you cross the street, things like that. And that's also why it's funny, the best and easiest way to get a child of any age to do anything is to find a way to make what you want them to do fun and interesting for them. When you figure that out, it's a lot easier to get some basic boundaries instilled that help keep them safe. Though otherwise, if it doesn't make them happy or fill their tummies or provide some sort of welcome nurturing, then toddlers don't accept it. The rules do not stick, and they don't have any of the, like, mountains of nonsense in their minds that we get in ours when we're thinking about what you do with something. Like, think about, like, a pencil. Okay, like a toddler sees a pencil and it's something to chew on, to throw at things, poke stuff with, to draw on the walls. But adults are like, no, pencils are only for writing on the writing pad. Our pencils are only for drawing. And you must not ever leave the pencil shavings from sharpening the pencil all over the place. But then think about it, even as adults, we get very much back into that state of breaking the rules, and we might then put the pencil shavings in the garden, right? Like right on top of plants, or we might throw it in the compost because we realize, oh, you don't have to throw that away. Hmm. And I think I'm not positive, but I think I read somewhere one time that you can use pencil shavings to help keep away things like fleas. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere, but I'm don't quote me on that. And don't make, say, well, if you want to make a mess, make a mess. That's the other fun thing, is that so many of us, because of how we condition ourselves and are conditioned as from the moment that we can walk and put things in our mouths, it starts. Um, I just There is not enough times in life when we allow ourselves to bend the rules, to break the rules. Like, we automatically are told how to do it, when to do it. Don't make a mess. That's what it was. And so, with making the messes, as adults, we'll get in this state of like, no messes, do not make a mess. Somebody might come over and see that we have a mess, or let's say you get into a job that ended up, or a community project where you came in to do like two or three specific things for the job, and then you got signed up to do a whole bunch of more stuff. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on in the daycare. I don't know if it's fun stuff or if everybody's not having as much of a good time, but if you see me go blank, it's because I'm hearing all these different sounds. In any case, what's wrong with making a mess? You know, my my one of my mom's favorite phrases is like, when the kids are really little and they're getting muddy, and like my DM was always very like, no, they can't, they're gonna get dirty, and it's like my mom would always say, well, but they're washable. They are. Babies are washable. Then, and you know what? How many wonderful things can they have going on for them just to be allowed to make a mess, to be allowed to make a mud pie, or to splash in a puddle, or to I don't know, draw on the walls. Like there's so many things that we get upset about, and it's like, why? Why do we have to have it that way? Was it because our parents got mad at us and wouldn't allow us to get messy? Is it because we're afraid other people will see our kids or us being messy and they'll be really upset about that and be like, you got to clean your baby? Like, what are our reasons why we have to follow those rules? Why not break them? Why not toss them out the window? Reverse them. They don't exist. Be like the toddlers. And if it doesn't make you feel really, really good, then don't worry about it. It's not a rule that you need to worry about right now. Maybe it'll come back and it'll mean something later. Maybe it'll never come back. Maybe it'll never mean anything. Either way, we're in this age of Aquarius, which can be very cerebral. We might be caught in our thoughts a lot about things, but one of the most wonderful things about times when we have really big, strong Aquarius energy is invention, inspiration, intuition, and imagination. Like, so many different things happen, and the collective is already getting onto that train. And I mean, I think really the question is like, do you want to be? This is going to be weird to say. Do you want to be like in the back of the train where you're like you've got so many people stuffed in around you just waiting to go and build the things that the people in the front of the train allowed themselves to consider for a minute and allow to become a real thing? Like, as Abraham says, when thoughts become things, like maybe they had an idea one day. Like, somebody had the idea of windshield wipers for headlights on cars, right? Somebody had an idea for bumper stickers. Somebody had an idea for Easter eggs. We don't even know how far back that one goes, but think about it. And I think that's what it is. When life comes in to distract you and to say, wait, you've got to pay attention to this, recognize that, one, yeah, you can go pay attention to that, but that's not necessarily a sign that what you want to work on, what you want to follow, your hopes and your dreams are bad. And if you can, don't address the thing. If it doesn't really have to do with you, or if it can be taken care of by somebody else, it's not an immediate emergency, you haven't been leaving it on them, or like more in proportionately, then keep your focus on your joy, on your fun, on reimagining the way things work. Like, relationships don't have to look a certain way. They don't have to be how they've always done. You don't have to parent the way that your parents parented you. There's a lot of using that word. You don't have to read tarot cards the way that anybody else does. I think allowing my youngest son to learn to read tarot simply by allowing him, just go, what story do they tell, right? And I like that. For me, was a beautiful experience because I wanted to be like, no, no, you don't do that, you do this, you do that, but instead just going, no, what do you feel called to do with them? Like, that's very much how we practice a lot of things. How do you feel called to do that? What does your heart tell you is the right thing to do? And I've never seen anybody read tarot cards the way he has, but he naturally came up with pretty much the same metaphors that we all do, considering the cards. And I think for him, it's, learning it that way is more intuitive, but there's a lot of rules that were broken in that, if you want to go by how most people describe how you read tarot cards, right? But here's the thing, though. You got to be willing to break the rules and to make a mess. To be seen as silly or absurd or crazy or obsessed. Any of those things. Like the people who have succeeded over time, who brought us the great innovations, the greatest texts of all time, the revitalizations of technology, things like that. They were willing to be a bit of a fool. Some of them were willing to be a lot of a fool. So it really depends, you know. You break as many rules as you feel comfortable with, and then you reinvent the way it works. Which I think is going to be an energy for today, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do a daily vibe or I'm going to do full on readings or what. But for those of you watching this one, definitely it's that. It's not just about breaking the rules, it's about breaking the rules intentionally so that you can look at the pieces, much like a toddler does, and decide which ones you want to keep and then what to do with them. You don't have to rebuild a tower after the tower falls. You can make it into a castle or a cabin or a hut or a garden wall, or you could just throw the rocks for fun. That could be a game you do every day. Hey, if it brings you joy, don't worry about if it would bore the crap out of anybody else. Anyways, I'm going to leave this divine nugget here and consider more of the energies coming in for today. Thank you so much for adding your vibes to the tribe, and I will catch you in the next video.